We had a bit of a gap where the Israeli attacks on Palestine had ceased. The rockets from Hamas seemed to have ceased as well. We had a changeover in the Israeli government, but the tensions were still there. In fact, they seemed to be getting worse, as you can see in this little video. A group of people chanting "Death to Arabs" at a nationalist march. Let's take a look. Okay, so if you ever, like go to a march and you find yourself in a group of people that are chanting that a group should all be murdered, don't be a part of that group. That's a bad group. You don't want to be part of that. But unfortunately, that sentiment is out there, and the government seemed to want to oblige, and so they launched attacks. Strikes were eventually committed against Palestine once again. The Israeli military saying just really early today, for our news cycle it was yesterday, but that they'd conducted airstrikes in the Gaza Strip after saying that Hamas had sent incendiary balloons into southern Israel from Gaza. So I don't know. Look, I don't know what Hamas did. I don't know how many balloons they had. I don't know what the balloons did. We don't even have, as of when I was checking, actual knowledge about the casualties that were caused by the Israeli military airstrikes, let alone the balloons. But we are into a new government here, JR, but there's a possibility that the new government is going to want to show its base that it is just as lustful for the blood of Palestinians as the last one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess let's not miss the part that these are still politicians, and you see crowds like this that are chanting "Death to Arabs," and maybe some portions of these politicians believe they have to satisfy those folks' needs or their thoughts and desires, especially when it comes to this type of time when there's this transition of government. We saw it just here. There's always a bit of a tedious moment, especially since it's so close of an election to happen, that allows us where the kind of power struggle is a little bit shaky, and you're not really sure if you're going to continue to keep it. Netanyahu's on the side talking about how we're going to be lying in wait to make sure that we have another chance to beat the opposition right now, and then get a chance to run our government again. I mean, similar types of statements like what Donald Trump has been saying. I'm just waiting until 2024. I'm coming back in, and that keeps the energy around the folks that supported him in its types of policies to make sure he gets back into power. So all of this is probably playing on the heads of a lot of these politicians to think, well, what do we do now to make sure that we're not seen as the bad guys, or we're not seen as opposition to what most people want? And sure, I mean, a couple of balloons, and I don't want to downplay because I don't know what the balloons do, but apparently setting some fires to some fields, potentially triggered by some demonstrations to brag about how they're taking more land. All this stuff just brews beneath the surface until we start seeing rockets get launched again, and people die again. Then it turns into the same narrative, but we never get to the point of stopping the things that get us to those points. I mean, look, we had the ceasefire a couple weeks ago, and ever since then, not nobody, but a significant number of people stopped talking about it, right? And that could be included people that I agree with and like and everything. It's just the nature of the game, right? And then that's when things like this get to brewing again under the surface. How do you really keep track of such a thing, especially from where we are in our position and things that we're used to talking about?
Yeah, and look, my worry about the transition, at least, partly it's that, yeah, I think a lot of the media has sort of checked out. And one of my worries is when you have like this big thing happens, conflict again, covering it every night, and then there's like a brief period. If it starts again, it feels often like, oh, well, but we're not gonna do it again, like, right, in terms of the coverage. I often worry about that. Like, taking a brief break can be a way to stop the momentum of media coverage of an issue. But my worry here is really about what Joe Biden is going to do if this is just the first in a number of missile strikes against Palestine. Because when the new Naftali Bennett became the prime minister, there are all these reports coming out of the White House saying this is an opportunity for us to start to change our relationship and all that. Like, my worry is that he is going to want to show this new government, both the prime minister and the ruling coalition in the parliament, that we still have their back and everything. So is he going to be, whereas the relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu, that was a very long running thing. There was a lot of historical inertia there. So I'm a little bit worried about what the response is going to be. But that said, coming out of that chant that we showed you and the fact that these nationalist marches are happening, there are other politicians, not Joe Biden, who are coming out vigorously against that. So I want to give credit to Jamal Bowman, who said this is a genocidal chant, let's call it what it is. I represent many within the Jewish community who disavow and condemn this hateful language. So why does only a small portion of our Congress? It's a great question. And Rashida Tlaib tweeted, after racist and violent deaths to Arabs marches earlier today in Jerusalem, children in Gaza are being woken by bombs in the middle of the night. Israel's government doesn't value Palestinian lives. It has managed a decades-long ethnic cleansing project funded by the US. And that final point is a good one. It might be that Biden, even if he wanted to change our relationship with Israel, try to push for increased concern for the lives of Palestinians, which I don't take as a given that he will. Even if he were to, there's only so much directly we can make the Israeli government do when it comes to Palestine. We do have a lot of power, we don't often use it, but even then there's limits. But what we definitely can do is stop funding the bombs that are killing the people, or at the very least put some sort of requirements in terms of their use or considerations of human rights, whatever, for continued military support, both in direct cash payments and weapons and technology and things like that. But we're not doing literally any of those things. This is a wide spectrum of possible responses. We're not even in the same room as the spectrum, let alone on it.
Yeah.
Any further thoughts?
No, I was looking for there's a potential point of the statement, because I read it the other day from Biden when Naftali Bennett came in, and it mentioned the peace between Palestinians and Israelis at the very end, in the very last sentence or two. Whole rest of it was talking about we're going to continue this support and relationship with one of our staunchest Middle East allies. Normal stuff you would hear, and we're going to make sure we preserve, the Israelis' right to defend itself. The same similar thing. So, as far as wondering if the relationship's going to change with a different leader, no. As far as from our perspective, at least, it's a matter of continuing that relationship for our benefit and from our side, not necessarily to make sure that the peace is happening. You can see it from the levels of importance that go through the statement. The things at the end are kind of like the wrap up, and we had to throw that in there. At least that's what it feels like to me. So the relationship is going to be the same.
I think that you might be onto something. And certainly this isn't right now, it's sort of timed with Biden's off doing his meeting. There's the G7, there's Putin and all that. Is he really going to be engaging that much with what's going on with Israel and Palestine? Doesn't seem like it. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.